Welcome to Tales from SYL Ranch Live, and I'm Bill Stone. Tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we will, of course, have this week's Lancaster County virus statistics, Lancaster County, Nebraska, where I live. Talk a little bit about my farewell tour. We will talk about what's in the Tales from SYL Ranch Darkroom this week, because it's quite a lot. We'll have brief reviews of Stargirl and Foundation. I really only have a couple of things to say about those. And pretty much anything else that you want. This is, of course, a live stream, so you're free to talk with me about anything that you want in chat. You can ask me any question, whether it's political, social, the virus whose name I can't mention without risking this video being banned, the dystopian nightmare that the United States is becoming, or even things related to science fiction, fantasy, horror, superheroes, and other related genres. I am happy to answer each and every question in as much detail as I possibly can. There are some personal subjects that I'm actually going to talk about a little bit today, but most of the time personal stuff is off the table. But I will get to as many of my viewers as I can, with the understanding that I don't know how long I'll be in this chair. My back is really, really good this week. I'm really, really happy with it. It's been good for a couple of weeks, so we'll see. We'll see how I go. Looking back in my chat, because it looks like Marshall and Jeanette were going on for quite some time here. I don't think I can get them all. You guys were talking and talking before the show started. Yikes. Yep, you started without me. I see that. Okay, I can't really go back through all of that stuff. There's too much of it, so we'll just kind of go forward. And to answer the question that basically only one person in my audience ever asks, what are this week's virus statistics for Lancaster County, Nebraska, where I live? As always, I source this with the City of Lincoln, Lancaster County Health Department. Link to that in my description box below. I would note that some of my statistics aren't the same as the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, but this is because I'm using a more accurate count of the county's population. The County Health Department is using a county population number of approximately, 257,753, but this number comes nowhere near neither the city nor the county's population. They appear to have just significantly lowballed the population in order to inflate our statistics to look better. Let's see. Yes, talking about Jeanette. Yes, that's true. And yeah, your Schrodinger's cat numbers. That'll be there. It's there now. You can look at them. Went up in a way that I don't like, but I updated this today at 1750 UTC. The total Lancaster County population is at 322,608, give or take a few. Total Lancaster County deaths is now up to 309, which is rather whopping 21 from the last time I reported 2 weeks ago. This is the largest uptick since Christmas and represents a statistically small increase, but still it's up by 21. That's quite a lot. Now this is while we have a mask order in place. So you kind of think, if masks worked, we wouldn't have had this uptick. Our mask order has been extended until November 24th, 2021. And as always, interestingly, I'm seeing a lot of people who are not putting on a mask if they can avoid putting one on. Mostly don't ever see them at convenience stores, some restaurants, and a lot of fast food places. As always, for comparison, the number of people who died of heart disease in 2019 alone was 485, which means that over the entire pandemic, the number of people who died of the virus is 63.711% of the number who died of heart disease in only 1 year in 2019. So if the virus is a pandemic in Lancaster County, then heart disease is just plain an ongoing disaster. Total Lancaster County confirmed cases is at 40,982, which is up a rather whopping 2,312 from the last time I reported. This is the largest uptick by far since Christmas, and starts to represent statistically important numbers when you got that big. And again, this is while we have a mask order in place. Kind of makes you say, if masks worked, why do we have the uptick? Let's see. Yes, Marshall says, like they inflate the currency to make crypto look better. Yes, and certainly doing a lot of that. Number of positive cases classified as recovered is now at 34,819, which is up 2,784 from the last time we reported. That is a significant uptick as well. And it's always good when this number goes up because it means that more people are classified as recovered. But interestingly, of course, while we are experiencing more infections and deaths, but we are also seeing the statistically significant rise in people who have been classified as recovered. So that's always a good thing. Now, I don't know what this classification means exactly, but given there's 309 deaths, if you run the math, that leaves about 5,853 people in some kind of Schrodinger's cat-style limbo, existing both simultaneously as alive and dead. However, that is 492 people more since I last reported who are now simultaneously alive and dead. The total number of completed vaccinations in Lancaster County is at 193,313, which is up 389 from the last time I reported. That actually makes a certain amount of sense. We've generally been adding about 1,000 people a week. It's been a couple of weeks, so that number makes sense to me. The percentage of the population that's been vaccinated is now at 59.92%, up 1.343% from last week. There's been really no significant statistical change. We get about 1,000 every week. Genesis of the zombie apocalypse, you're talking about the guys who are simultaneously alive and dead? Deaths as a percentage of confirmed cases is now at 0.754%, up 0.009% from last week. Statistically, this rise has been identical for a long time. Deaths as a percentage of the population, unfortunately, is now up to 0.0958%, which is up 0.007% from the last time I reported. That uptick is really statistically kind of insignificant. However, I am not happy about the fact that we are slowly inching toward a figure of 0.1% in this county in terms of percentage of deaths. But, as always, if you've been listening or watching me or looking at the website and some of the stats they've got, and they've got some cool graphs, even though the stats are kind of wrong, you can still look at it and say, okay, our biggest increases have largely been before or just now after we have a vaccine available, calling in my mind into question whether any damn thing works on this or not. So, I guess I gotta talk about my farewell tour. This is going to be my last stream for a while. I don't know how long. I think probably I may upload some standalone videos from time to time, but I've got to cut back on this. Here's the deal. I've talked about this sort of before from time to time. I have two major things wrong with me that make it impossible for me to work. I have a rather severe anxiety disorder that is generally well treated with medications. And I have diabetes, which is also generally treated with a combination of medication now. It used to just be a really horrifying diet that I couldn't eat anything, and I still don't. But you wouldn't know it to look at. I mean, there's very few things I can eat. So combined with medication, that's generally okay. But what happens is if the two things decide to get together, and what always has happened since this really started to be a problem is my stress level increases and my diabetes goes all to hell. I had a come to Jesus moment one time when I passed out on my living room floor and woke up about 40 minutes later, checked my blood sugar, and it was down to 40. That's kind of dangerously low. You want it around 100. Above 100 is okay till you get to a certain point. Whenever you get to like 300, they say go to the hospital. I did that once, only made things worse. I'm not going to go to a hospital, thank you, no. But those two things combined are really kind of problematic with my health. So what's happened here is, in my personal life, stuff that I won't talk about, there have been some rather constant stressors involved. And we've got some increase on some of that cannot go away. I've got some stuff going on that might go away and make things better, but what's happening is as I have these various stressors in my life, my medications are not working as well as they should. And when I looked at the various things going on in my life, and I said, okay, what is any kind of stressor? Even if you like it, like I do here, it's still a stressor. So, okay, what are my stressors? Well, I got the stuff that isn't going to go away and probably is going to get worse. We've got the stuff that's immediate that will probably go away over time. And then we've got really this stream. And I said to myself, well, I can't get rid of all those stressors that are, causing me problems, but I can take away one thing. So that's what I'm kind of doing, is taking away one thing, and we'll see how it goes. Jeanette is saying, no, yes, I'll be missed, but taking care of myself is the most important thing you need to do. Yeah, well, like I say, I know how this can end up, having passed out on my living room floor once. And there's other stuff, like I say, the stressors are causing problems with my medication, it seems like, so I just kind of have to, step back, see what happens when I take away some of these stressors. That said, and I looked at everything I'm doing, and I said, okay, am I actually saying something in terms of, politics that nobody else is saying? Not really. And generally, there are people with bigger reach and bigger voices than I have, too. So, when you see Tim Pool talking about something, he sometimes talks about the same sort of thing that I do, but he's got a way bigger reach. And so, coming people with that is a good thing. And I said to myself, am I really doing anything that's different, sort of in the fanish world where I have my other foot? And again, I have to look at it and say, not really. There are people with bigger footprints than I who are saying much the same things. The only thing I really brought to, the show was my ability to do these really long form reviews that you can find in my archives. And those fly about as well as a lead brick, much as I enjoyed doing it. But that was really about the only thing that I'm bringing to the table that's anything unusual. And so I said, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do that. And really, there's other people who are doing this better. So what I'm finding, however, that I don't quite have a corner on the market for, but I'm one of very few people who's doing this. If you look over at my Tales from SYL Ranch Darkroom, a link in the description box, I can put up a lot of content there. And that's because it is hands-off for the most part. I take, my Topaz AI that does the, upscaling of stuff to usually 4K. I'm getting it 4K nowadays, up to 4K. And then the other program, Flow Frames, which I use to interpolate additional frames to usually go double what the released version is. And I can do that really without much stress. I choose a movie or something that I want to do, take a clip out of it with hand brake, throw it at one program and let it run for probably hours. Throw it at the other program and it may run even longer. It depends how big the clip is and all of that. But usually, you're talking about 2 or 3 hours. And I don't have to be around for any of it. I just throw this stuff at software and then I'm done. And I can upload stuff to my heart's content. And really the only thing I have to do is write a good description, because my descriptions are always very descriptive. So one of the things I pride myself on is there's a lot of stuff that you can see in there that's useful regarding the video. I know very few people read it. But that's one of the things I do. And the other thing is I have to have ad copy, which sometimes is very, very similar to the description that's in the video. Yes, my website's certainly going to be up, and I am going to be... I left social media. Just left. And a very interesting thing happened. I started to run short of content. I have been using social media to inform my content, and I shouldn't have. Because, as Dave Chappelle mentioned, Twitter isn't a real place. And when you step away from it, you step away from all of this noise, that tends to drive you nuts after a while. If you don't agree with something, it's driving you nuts. If you run into people who disagree with you, it's driving you nuts. And it's not a real place. It can be walked away from, and that's what I did. Most of my advertising will probably be on my website, sylranch.tv. a little behind right now, but I'm going to catch up with it probably within the next 24 to 48 hours. And so sylranch.tv is a great place to go. It's there's a donation thing in the description box, but if you click there and click any place else, you'll be fine. Getting past the dopamine, yes, Marshall says it's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, you just walk away and you do experience a certain level of withdrawal. One of the other personal things I don't think I've ever talked about, and I'll go ahead and do it here. In 2004, but for the better part of 18 months until January 1st, 2004, I was addicted to prescription painkillers that I got initially. They did some stuff on my nose. I had to go in for sinus surgery for a whole slew of things. They put me on these things, and because I was not at that time getting good medications for my anxiety disorder, pop one of those things, and my God, everything looks sunny. You know, everything goes away from me, and so I was doing that, and I started to abuse them, and by the 1st of January 2004, I had gotten to a point where I realized that if I didn't get off this stuff, it was going to be a major problem. I did not have a hit rock bottom moment. I had a hit of, okay, you gotta quit. It's going to become a major problem. So I got off of it. The hardest damned thing I ever had to do was get off of prescription opiates. So when I stopped using social media, I recognized a few of the symptoms, that you get with opiate withdrawal. It wasn't nearly as bad. I mean, for me, opiate withdrawal was 3 days of sheer horror and awfulness. Now, as I say, hardest thing I ever did was getting off of it. But it was a similar feeling. I went, oh, I recognize this. So yeah, it's probably, like I said, at a point where I'm probably not going to do these as frequently. I will probably do some, and there will come a point when the major stressors in my life have gone, and when that happens, I'll probably start doing it again pretty regularly. But right now, it's like I say, I just have to look at it and be analytical and go, okay, what can you take away to see if your meds start working okay, so you don't, screw everything up for yourself. So, with that in mind, as I say, I can put stuff in the darkroom the livelong day almost, and I have for the last 2 weeks put quite a lot of stuff in the darkroom. First off, in the last couple of weeks, I put up 3 of these. It's kind of amazing. Well, no, it's more than that. I don't remember. But I put up the Superman Fleischer cartoons, episode 14, The Mummy Strikes, up to 1440p and 48 frames per second. I didn't bother putting a link to this because if I had, I would have gone on quite forever. I think I put 5 or 6 things in, and I'm going to drop another one right after the show tonight. So you can go, there's a link to the channel there, and you can go take a look at that. But I also put in the Star Trek Discovery Season 4 official trailer, upscaled to 48K and 4K and 48 frames per second. I have had this hope that maybe when I see some of these trailers, that come out and get a lot of views, if I can just get in there soon enough afterwards with my upscaled one, maybe some people will stumble onto it. And a couple of people actually have. I got a couple of comments on a couple of my videos where people are like, "Oh, cool, thank you," because like I'm going to talk about the Doctor Who one I did, and 2 Doctor Who ones I did. So it's like that. Can I put up the county numbers up occasionally, maybe on a community page? I don't know. It might be. See, I have to be careful with this. Is all I'm saying. I have a tendency to want to go, yes, that sounds very cool, but then I have to go, is that a stress you want to put into your life? I'll see about getting them up. I'll see about putting them up. Maybe on my website, on my webpage, a webpage someplace. Because as I say, that's kind of what I'm aiming for using now. Looking at the numbers doesn't stress me. To do this requires a lot of prep time, more than you would probably think. I have something that I use for a very, very poor man's teleprompter, which is an application called Lyx, L-Y-X, which is what's called a document processor. But it works very well for me because I can put things out in a very structured fashion and have some notes and stuff that makes sense, or sometimes I prepare things. But it's not so much. There's just a fair amount of prep work that goes into doing this, and if I pare it down to where I'm just doing, the stats, that may be okay. As I say, it's one of the deals where I just have to go, okay, well, hang on, don't commit to anything too much just yet. We want to make sure everything's going okay with your drugs. Another thing I put up there was the Star Trek Discovery Season 4 official trailer, upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second. Again, I'm hoping that maybe I'll get some views because I'm putting up something. And if you look at mine, if I got it off of some other channel on YouTube, and oftentimes I get it straight off of like the Star Trek Discovery official channel or something, so I pull it off of there. But if you look in the descriptions when that happens, I have the exact ad copy they've got in there. So I'm hoping. Is there a link to a website? Yes, there is, and when you get there, you're going to find it's a little behind in terms of my content. It was only relatively recently that I thought, God dang it, I can't do this social media crap. But there is one in the description box. It's under support, I think. It goes to the donation page on my site, but you can certainly click around. But it's relatively easy. It's sylranch.tv, because I couldn't get any other top-level domains, and I figured it kind of, So, one of the other fun things I put up, the Star Trek The Next Generation opening titles, upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second, and Star Trek The Next Generation had several versions of their opening titles. They had one version that was only ever used in the first episode, and then a second version that was used for the first and second seasons, and then a third version that was used basically for the remainder of the show, with some occasional throw-in changes here or there. But I was able to take the opening titles from an episode that I've got that's in 1080p resolution. And it's from the Star Trek, it's from the remastered versions of this. It's not like Star Trek, the original series, where they went through and remastered everything and did all kinds of new special effects, because it just doesn't work on a big screen. What they did was they went back and used the original masters to remaster a new version that would be good for 1080p. So I was able to get the 1080p copy and then, increase the frame rate and update the number of frames per second. That one looks rather nice. I'm rather happy about the way that one turned out. That was really fun. I got it. Thank you. Okay, cool, Jeanette. As I say, it's a little behind on my content, and I need to get in there and probably will within the next 24 hours. And you see all the stuff I'm talking about, plus tonight's, and will show up in that page more or less all at once. So I also uploaded the Superman episode 15 Jungle Drums, upscaled to 1440p and 48 frames per second. One of the things in some of these later cartoons is I don't have access to a really good print. There are a lot of different prints floating out there. Some of them have really washed out colors. Other of them suck for various reasons. So I find the best original prints that I can, because that's what's going to make it look good. And the original prints for the Superman cartoons, the first one is beautiful. The one that I got in 4K, the very first one, because somebody at some point in that print's life had gone in and cleaned it up, because I know they couldn't do another print. That's just impossible. So somebody cleaned that up with a lot of care. The rest of them vary in terms of their quality. Some are good, better, some are a little worse than others, but they're still pretty good looking. I just don't want to bother upscaling them to 4K, because they would not look very good. 1440p is about the best I can do. But if I come up with a good print, I will redo all of those and upload them. The channel is kind of experimental that way, so if I find something better, I'll put them up as well. Another one I did that was kind of fun. The X-Men Apocalypse Quicksilver Saves Everyone. Upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second. If you're not familiar, the X-Men movies, when they got to Quicksilver, did an extraordinary job of portraying super speed. Just an extraordinary job. And there is a scene in X-Men Apocalypse when Quicksilver literally saves everyone in a building that is exploding. It's in the process of exploding, but they portray super speed so well that he gets everybody out of there before it really goes up. But you can see him running across things like floor beams coming up because of the explosive force underneath. He'll just run across the top of the floor beams. It's really a great scene, and I upscaled it, and I think it looks even more pretty now. It's a great scene, and also it's upscaled very nicely, and it was a very nice upscale. Oh, you went to a 404 page? That's interesting. I'll have to check that and see what my stuff says. Huh. Okay. Maybe I have to check and see what my links are doing. Maybe they're different. I better change it back. Anyway, the Quicksilver Saves Everybody is, I think, a very cool video. It comes out, and it just is very pretty in terms of what it does. And it's upscaling and frame rate increasing a piece of video that is a lot of fun to watch in the first place. Nobody else has ever done portraying super speed like they did with Quicksilver, and I don't know what you do about it. Maybe wait until viewers are older and they may have forgotten how it was done, but that was how it should be done, period. And nobody else has done it better since. None of the Flash movies, nothing. It is a cool scene that's a lot of fun to watch. At the same time, upscaled, looks even prettier. The other one I have, one that's also a Marvel type thing, was what I think of as the most satisfying moment in the entire MCU. And that was where we find out, spoilers if you haven't watched Avengers Endgame, that's where we find out that Captain America is worthy to wield Mjolnir. That is a very cool moment. So what I've got is the battle leading up to that moment, and then him using the hammer to put the smackdown on Thanos. So it's that's a really fun video that also upscales really well. You can see that the special effects teams and stuff did an extraordinary job just on things like lightning. You know, a lightning strike you think of as just kind of coming in, and all you see is kind of a flash. But what they've done with this is they have animated the lighting so well for the lightning that it'll come down in a moving stream. But you can also see the movement of the lightning coming down and striking. It is very cool. They did an extraordinary job on that lightning. And when it's upscaled to 4K, it's really pretty because you get to see every little twisting turn of this lightning going through. It's very, very cool. Hey, Drop of Truth. Hey, everybody. I'm rather shiny. Yeah, I'm feeling okay. You missed my whole explanation, but I'm stopping streaming for a while and moving over and doing stuff on my second channel. But yes, for a while. One of the things you always like to say is, if you look at like singers and stuff, like I went to Shania Twain's farewell tour, right? Aside, I'm a huge Shania Twain fan. She's the same age as I am. She's on the list of people to be the next ex-Mrs. Stone. And her songs helped me get, frankly, through a rather rough patch when I was getting divorced. And I really love Shania Twain. So I hadn't seen her in concert, and so I went in Des Moines for her farewell tour. And like every other singer and band that has ever had a farewell tour, she had more tours after that. So I don't necessarily call this as last. It is going to be stopping for a while because I need to for health reasons. But when some of the things that are going on in the background that I don't talk about are taken away, I'll probably come back and start doing it again. When that will happen is anybody's guess. I don't know, and I'm not looking forward to when it happens. But it could be something that I'll get back to. So, hey, Rich, how you doing? Came in for what I'm doing I'm putting my show on hold here for a bit, but Anyway, we got Captain America upscaled. The Cap is worthy. It's very cool. Again, one of those scenes that's just fun to watch. But when you see it upscaled and you look at things like the lightning and all the detail that they went to, such that when you upscale it, it looks even better. It's just a real fun piece of video. Yes, the Rolling Stones has had at least 3 farewell tours. Yeah, well, okay. I may have talked about this once or twice, but Shania Twain, as I say, big fan. So I paid to sit in the good seats. The good seat turned out to be an amazing seat because I was 1 row behind all of the people that had paid a zark ton of money to go and see Shania do a sound check and get her to autograph something personal. I don't care about that very much, but ultimately I ended up in the seats behind where they had spent a ton of money, which meant I had a great seat too. And then I was right on the aisle, and one of her numbers, Shania Twain, comes out into the audience, and I put up my hand and high-five her. It's been about 10 years. I still had not washed my left hand. But it was a lot of fun. The only thing I discovered was that I am apparently Shania Twain's sole male heterosexual unattached fan, because I was the only one there alone, because I didn't want to get to take a date or anything. God, it would have cost me double. It was like $250 already. But anyway, there were couples there, lots of couples. I think there was a contingent of homosexual guys there. But just alone, I was the only one that I saw out of that sea of people who was apparently her sole unattached heterosexual male fan. So. Also put up one in the darkroom that's very, very interesting. Jeanette says, Bill, can I invite you to draw me and Marshall and anyone else to the YouTube you mod? Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to do it, sure. Just drop the URL in there and we'll see if YouTube will allow it. If not, you can sort of get around it by doing, www space.dot space, and do it like that. It won't. Sometimes it'll let you post a URL and sometimes it won't. I haven't figured out how or why. It's the same deal with my with comments on my videos. Sometimes they stay there. Sometimes they disappear for no reason that I've been able to tell. I've put stuff up that disappears in my comments. No idea why. Thank you, YouTube, for whatever the hell you're doing. So anyway, the one that I upscaled that I was kind of interested about was the Bee Gees Staying Alive video. They have 2 for that, for Staying Alive, and I chose one that's a little more freaky, a little more trippy. And I upscaled that sucker to 4K and 60 frames per second. And here's what happens. And it's a really good example of this. If you don't have a good print to start with, upscaling, it'll help some, but it doesn't give you as much detail because you're starting with a low resolution video to start with. So I started with this fairly low resolution, upscaled it, did the frame rate change on it, and it looks pretty good. It's it's not as clear as you'd want most of the time in 4K, but the frame interpolation worked really nicely. Drop a tooth. I know you're interested in maybe me doing Doctor Who titles. That's on the docket, by the way. But if you look at this one, the video is such that Drop a Tooth, you'll recognize instantly. It looks a lot like John Pertwee's intro, and for the same reason, they use the same effects to get it. But the frame interpolation in between there works really nicely for that. All of this freaky stuff coming off of them, like the Doctor Who titles, all this freaky stuff coming off them, it seems a little more natural because it's coming in a more faster frame rate. Okay. Yes, I'll search Land of Speculation. That's one. I didn't let you put the URL in, but we can search for Land of Speculation. Maybe I'll see if I can find a link when I get off. I'll see if I can put a link to it in my description box. Anyhow, that one is just kind of interesting, from the perspective of what do things look like when you don't start with a very good thing to begin with, and it looks okay. It's okay. I got another one I'm going to talk about that is not okay. Drop 2 says, a classic Doctor Who. Yeah, the Bee Gees video that I've uploaded and frame rate and all that, they have some trippy special effects that they added, and the trippy special effects, if you look at it, just remind you a lot of that howl around from John Pertwee's era, and I think they used the same special effect to get it. So anyway, that was kind of a lot of fun, and kind of shows you what you get if you don't start with a pristine copy to begin with. It's not bad. It's really not bad. It's just you look at it and go, okay, well, this could be a little clearer if it had started out at 1080p or something. Also have the trailer for Doctor Who Flux, upscaled to 4K and 50 frames per second. That is the next season of Doctor Who. Again, putting up trailers is kind of my way of feeling around to see if anybody will accidentally search for something and find my upscaled versions, which has happened a couple of times. That one also looks really pretty. The thing about it is, I get multiple frame rates to start with, and sometimes you can see them and they don't look like they started at like 30 frames per second. They look like they were started at 24 and pushed outward in a way that doesn't do the AI like I'm doing. I'll mention them when I get to them. It's the Doctor Who Flux one works really well. The BBC releases things in 25 frames per second. What that means is, in a film or a TV show, every second there's going to be 25 individual images that your brain then interpret as movement. So what I do is I double the number of frames. So instead of 25, it comes out as 50. And it is a natural 25 frame per second. All of the BBC's videos that I find are naturally 25 frames per second. So throwing them up to 50 looks really nicely. But if you start with something that was 24 frames per second, which is the industry standard, Britain has always done it a little bit differently. But the 24 frames per second, that is 24 individual images that your mind interprets as movement, are going through there. Sometimes, when someone will upload them to YouTube, because I get some of these from YouTube, they will have changed it artificially to be 30 frames per second, but it's not actually 30 frames per second. So when you upscale that and do 60 frames per second, it doesn't look as good as a native 60 frame per second video would look. But can I buzz you on Twitter? Oh gosh, let's see. Jeanette says, thanks to me. You hope to see Drop of Truth and Marshall on that channel that you mod. Drop of Truth thoroughly enjoyed watching the Babylon 5 DVD set, but the interpolation done was on the cheap. Yeah, they don't usually do this. They will just upscale the thing. I mean, sometimes you get lucky with Star Trek The Next Generation, where they have the original masters they can go back and create a new print off of. But if you don't, you know, sort of a problem. Let's see. I mean, me buzz you on Twitter? Sure. Big Brother company functions on PAL, remember, Bill, not NTSC. Yeah, they're two different resolutions. When I upscale this one, it's a really odd resolution. By the way, you should know, if you go over to that channel and you look at those videos, what you will find on them is sometimes what looks like an unusual box on YouTube to play it in. That's because all of my videos have their native aspect ratio. They always have their native aspect ratio. They never have any black above or below their native aspect ratio. So sometimes, like with the Star Wars, Luke Trench run one, your film, if you just look at YouTube, it's going to be long and straight because the thing was shot in CinemaScope. It's going to be very thin. If you look at some other videos, like the Star Trek The Next Generation opening titles, that's going to be a square almost, because that was the resolution. But what the United States has used is a standard called NTSC. What it stands for eludes me. But that defines a certain aspect ratio, a certain number of pixels wide, certain number of pixels high. That's different in the UK. They don't use NTSC, they use PAL. So that is a different definition of even the the aspect ratio is slightly different. Actually, you'll see one towards the end that I've taken out. And it's interesting when you get to, like, when Doctor Who first came to the United States. Now they're taking this one video size and they're going to put it onto your screen that is a different video size. So what they do in a lot of those cases, and they say, well, the difference is so small, we'll just stretch it out. It's a little smaller on the sides in the UK, so we'll just stretch it out. You can always tell this, particularly in Doctor Who, because they tend to have circular time vortexes that they're going through, and they stretch out too much. They're a little wider. I never do that. All my videos you will see in their native. I will never find a video that has been stretched to put on there. I'll find videos that are of the original native resolution and upscale from there. Yes, Drop 2 saying PAL is 25 frames per second, NTSC is 30. Yeah, and what I usually get these videos in tends to be 24 frames per second. And that's fine. 48 frames per second looks really good. So, I mean, it gets very murky when you start to get into things like YouTube and internet videos, because they're defined in a radically different way, using a lot of ones and zeros. So it gets a lot weirder when you get onto a computer image as opposed to a television image, you know. Other things in my real quick with Drop a Tooth. Funnily enough, that balance with AC frequency 50 hertz in UK, Commonwealth countries, 60 in the United States. Yes, yeah. Anyway, other stuff I've got in the darkroom. I have the Flash movie teaser trailer with just a hint of Michael Keaton as Batman, an older Batman, which is kind of cool. Again, I'm putting trailers up in the hopes that an upscaled trailer will attract attention. What'll usually happen is I will find the damn trailer 3 to 4 hours after it's dropped, which means everybody's going there, and then I'll take the thing and upscale it, hopefully within a couple of hours or so, and put it out there and cross my fingers that some people who are searching find it. And it hasn't happened yet, but what the hell. Rich says, how come old DVD releases of VHS movies are like a millisecond faster? It ruins the movie for me. That's all a question, again, of how they transfer it. You know, you may have a frame rate that's a little bit different, or an aspect ratio that's a little different. And to save time, because they don't do what I do, because let me tell you, man, if I was going to like upscale and frame interpolate for like all of Star Wars, conceivably I could do it. But the amount of drive space that would take, the first thing that happens with Topaz Video AI is it takes it and, again, makes frames. It says, okay, we got 24 frames per second, so there's movement in this frame, there's movement in this frame. What was in between that? And makes it up. And then there's the frame rate interpolation, which most people wouldn't do anyway. But yeah, if they don't transfer the thing properly, then it can look odd. I always like to judge it against circles that are on the screen. Am I seeing a circle, or am I seeing what typically happens, a widened out one, because they stretched it out? And they screw with timing to some extent as well. Partly, mostly I think of that to make their advertising on television. And so you get DVD releases of stuff. It's all very weird. I have seen it happen. You get DVD releases of things that were on VHS, but they weren't brand new prints for DVD. They just took the VHS resolution and blew it up to DVD resolution. And, you eventually get to something like the DVDs of the Superman cartoons, which I bought, thinking, because it said so, this is a brand new transfer. And I thought, oh, wow, they got a new transfer. That's going to look great. No, it turns out what they've got is some stuff that they artificially upscaled, just threw it up there without actually changing anything. And so it looks weird. In fact, it looks terrible on those Blu-rays. Don't get the Blu-rays of those. Yuck. Drop 2 says, Ezra Miller is such a disappointing Flash or anything else, really. I haven't seen him in anything else, so I can't really talk about it. But take away all of the artificial soap opera, and I think probably the best casting for the Flash was on the CW. Again, you got to take all the crap out, but I don't think he's bad at all. But Ezra Miller has been told to play the Flash weird. So he's playing the Flash weird, and I don't think it works very well. Drop 2 says, are the latest Hollywood actors getting uglier by design? Is this part of woke society? Who the hell knows? I don't know. Jeanette, okay, see you later. But next time I'll catch you in the darkroom. Cool. Awesome. Harry Potter prequels, Fantastic Beasts. Well, this is just a simple cash grab. Harry Potter sold well, so they're going to just sit on that thing and try to milk that cash cow as much as they possibly can. Other things in the darkroom. As I said, I put a lot of stuff up in the last couple of weeks. I have the Black Adam trailer. That is, again, upscaled to 4K and 50 frames per second. Looks very pretty. Not much to say about it. I'm of two minds about a Black Adam movie, because it doesn't appear to be involving Captain Marvel, Shazam, in that film. So I'm like, wait, Black Adam was like one of Captain Marvel's worst supervillains. Why would you make a movie without Captain Marvel? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's what they're doing. And looking at it, I mean, the teaser trailer's fun, but it's, again, upscaled, and it looks a lot prettier, frankly. Okay, see you later, Marshall. Drop 2 says Ezra Miller was in Fantastic Beasts. Oh, I didn't get what you're saying. I haven't seen Fantastic Beasts, so I don't know. I liked Harry Potter just fine, but for me, it was, at the time, a thing that I was doing with my kids. You know, I would read them Harry Potter books at night before they went to bed, and so they were very interested in seeing the Harry Potter movies. And now they're adults, and were at the time that was a thing, so I'm like, well, I don't have the same connection anymore, you know. Other things in the darkroom is the Peacemaker official teaser trailer, upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second. If you don't know, Peacemaker is a DC character whom I think has been seen in one or two of the Suicide Squad movies. I don't know. I haven't watched them, just not interested. But he's a character that's been seen there, and he is getting his own TV show on HBO. So he's got a teaser trailer out there that I put up. The other one, the one that I thought was fun, the one that I thought was real fun, was from Doctor Who, The Day of the Doctor, when all 13 doctors save Gallifrey, upscaled to 4K and 50 frames per second. If you know that scene, if you're around Doctor Who for very long, if you've been with Doctor Who like since 2005, the saving of Gallifrey was a character-changing moment, right? It just absolutely altered his character from then forward. And so the moment where it actually happens is a lot of fun to watch, particularly if you're a Doctor Who fan. But B, it is, of everything that has happened in Doctor Who from 2005 to 2021, that is probably the most satisfying moment in the entire series there. And The Day of the Doctor, I often say, is, the best Doctor Who episode ever. You can compare it against anything else that came before or after in its 50-plus years. And The Day of the Doctor is the best. It's just the best in so many ways. So I took that scene, and as always, I have copyright claims on so many of these. I don't really mind, but sometimes I have tried to, and successfully. I have successfully. That Bee Gees one was a perfect example. That one was just instantly blocked worldwide, and so I submitted a thing that said, "Look, what I'm doing falls under fair use because this is a nonprofit experimental research thing that I'm doing." Took the Bee Gees about 3 weeks to look at it and go, well, okay. Plus, he's plugging us. I plug their website. I plug their Facebook page in my description. I plug each of the band members, the three big ones. So they let that go, and I'm trying to use that elsewhere, but it will not fly with the BBC and Doctor Who. Just won't fly. There's a clip that I'm going to use at the end of this stream that may cause this entire video to be claimed for copyright by the BBC. Those guys are so They are really aggressive. They're more aggressive than anybody else. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but just uploading the video and going through the checks as you do so every single time, it'll catch you within just a second or two of the first part of the video. So that one for Doctor Who, both of them for Doctor Who. They're claimed, but I don't care. It still looks cool. Drop of 2 says, great selection in my darkroom. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Drop of 2 says, the 3 Doctors were much better than Day of the Doctor. Well, I don't know. I prefer Day of the Doctor. I have nothing against the 3 Doctors. I think that was a really good story. But for me, invested as I had been with the Doctors from 2005 on, and knowing, I said so, children, anybody who would listen at the time, they have very few places they can take the Doctor now. This event of the Time War and him destroying Gallifrey and the Daleks was so character defining for those Doctors that by the time they got to Day of the Doctor, they had stalled. There was no place to take this character anymore. We had seen the Time War and how it impacted him for so long. There was no place to take this character. So they did an about face. And that was about the only thing they could do with the character. So I was very happy about that. I'm really interested to see what happens with the 60th anniversary. We shall see. We have a new showrunner next year, or after the next season, anyway. And he's done Doctor Who before. He did the first several seasons with David Tennant. Whether or not he'll be able to do it again with another Doctor, hard to say. Sometimes it's lightning in a bottle and you just don't get it a second time. We'll see how he does. He certainly can't be any worse than the current showrunner. Drop 2 says, you grew up in Doctor Who. Absolutely. Classic Doctor Who is part of my childhood. Special place in my life. Me too. I think I was 12 when I saw Robot, the first episode of Tom Baker's era. And I saw it on PBS, which is where they showed it in the U.S., the entire classic Who. They were years behind. I mean, the first episode they showed was Robot. And the only thing about that was, you see at the beginning of the show, the tail end of the previous episode where Pertwee morphs into Tom Baker. And so that's the first thing you see as a viewer from the United States, because they did that throughout. Any PBS station they bought starting with Robot. So as a viewer, if you don't know anything about Doctor Who, you just watch this going, what just happened there, and what are they talking about? The regeneration and all that. So it was something that I had to, it sort of moved my way into. It wasn't something I was immediately loved, but it sort of grew on me. And I've had Doctor Who kind of with me the entire time too. Not as long as Star Trek, but a long time, and totally differently than the way they did it here in UK in terms of what we saw. What was real fun was when the 5 Doctors came out, the 20th anniversary episode. And what they did with that was they just bought that on the anniversary and then showed it on the anniversary. PBS did. But the problem was we weren't yet in the Peter Davison era. We were years from that, in fact. So this thing came up and we're like, oh, that's a very cool new opening titles. And who the hell are these people? And where's Tom Baker? It's because they took this episode that was way far down the chronology and just dropped it in the middle, and we're just like, what the hell? So it took having to watch through the rest of the Tom Baker era and get into the Peter Davison era, where we're like, okay, all right, now we know where we're at. But that's what PBS did. They started with Baker, and years later, after they'd gone through all the Doctors through Sylvester McCoy, that's when they went back and bought Pertwee. I don't think they ever bought any Hartnell or Troughton episodes. Those are in black and white. I think they were going, well, nobody will watch that. But they did ultimately buy the Pertwee era ones, so we got all that. It's only many years later that I was able to go on the high seas, matey, and I've now watched every Doctor Who episode extant that is currently survives. You started with, yes, Drop Truth, Russell T. Davies will go woke. I'm afraid of that as well. He's being replaced. I don't know if the suits get it. He's being replaced because Doctor Who has become horribly woke and nobody wants to watch it anymore. So they're going to replace him with Russell T Davies, who was the showrunner on the first several seasons. He was all the way through David Tennant's era of the Doctor Who since 2005. So I don't know if he can do it again. Hopefully he can, and hopefully he doesn't go woke, although he had leanings that direction when he was running the show. We will see how he goes. And you started with William Hartnell. That's cool. That's very cool. As I say, in the U.S., things were really different, and you didn't get the first two Doctors, Hartnell and Troughton. I didn't see all of their episodes until much, much later. Maybe 10 years ago now, because I was on the high seas by that time, meaty, and they had them all there, which we didn't usually. I mean, you could pay for them in the U.S. by then, but getting those in sets like they have is just astronomically expensive, and I can't cost justify it. But yeah, I have watched all of them. And again, for me, Day of the Doctor is probably the best episode, although you can certainly make a case for the three Doctors, because there was also a character-defining moment for that Doctor. He had been exiled to Earth by the Time Lords, but by virtue of saving their ass, they let him go again, and he could go out the rest of the universe. So there was another, character-defining moment in there, and that's always great to see. And if those were Doctors that you grew up with, I'm sure it's going to be really cool for him. As it was for me, watching Day of the Doctor, I thought they got everything about right. And Tom Baker is my Doctor. I saw him for the first time, even if I didn't understand what the regeneration was. Tom Baker's my Doctor, so to have him appear as maybe another Doctor, maybe his older self, younger self, even grown old, whatever that was supposed to be, and they didn't make any kind of statement about it. He just shows up, and that for me was a really cool moment. That was my Doctor, so that was fun to have him in there. I'm sure again if I started with Hartnell, I would want to see that. Of course, the man has passed away, as has everybody up to Tom Baker, but. It always interests me because, they have somebody else who plays the first Doctor, has several times now. Or two, I guess. One. Kind of. Well, okay. He played William Hartnell in a sort of a docudrama about how Doctor Who, came into existence in the first place. And then he played the first Doctor again at the end of the Capaldi era. But that it's, like I say, it's just something I've been with for a long time. And I like, the Day of the Doctor just because it was such a radical change for that character. Everything that we'd seen up to that point with that character centered around the guilt that he felt because of what he did in the Time War. Once that was taken away, it opens up another, landscape to try to, take a look at. Didn't do it very well, in my opinion, but, there's always still time. Drop of 2 says, Doctor Who on a black and white TV with valves that took 3 minutes to warm up. Yeah, I don't know if you call them valves there, but here we call them vacuum tubes. And yeah, it was, old TVs take time to warm up. And the fun part was when you turned them off, the screen would suddenly reduce to a little white dot that would stay there as an after image for a while. Drop of 2 says, Tom Baker's removal with not exactly under good circumstances. Yeah, I know. He'd started to have problems with the producer at that time. Guy named John Nathan Turner, who saw Doctor Who through the end of the Sylvester era when the show was canceled for a number of years. And he came. I have developed something that I call the John Nathan Turner rule, and I think it should be hung in big letters in the writer's room at any Doctor Who. And the John Nathan Turner rule is very simple. When you make the Doctor too dark, people stop watching. And that's what happened with Capaldi. They made the show too dark, and people stopped watching. Doctor Who needs to be a bit lighter than that. They've certainly been lighter with the current Doctor, but the show is so woke that you just want to projectile vomit after watching almost every episode. Drop 2 says the YouTube channel Clever Dick Films has some great Doctor Who mini documentaries of almost every Doctor Who, starting with William Hartnell. Highly recommended. Sure, take a look at that. Clever Dick Films. I'll have to have a look at that. Some of those are really good. There was a very good docudrama that they did also for the 50th anniversary. They came out with a whole bunch of stuff on the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who, and that's where the Day of the Doctor is. It's the 50th anniversary episode. But they came out with a bunch of other things, and one of them was a docudrama, sort of about William Hartnell from the time that shortly before he, was cast in the role of the Doctor, and then through when he was kind of forced to leave because of his health. But that was really cool, and if you watch the review of the reactors like I do, they always go nuts. And again, from my money, just because of the radical character change that they had to make, it was a really interesting point right for me, just right there, when the three Doctors are together and they're about to blow things up, and then they realize that there's another way out, and all three of them are just getting absolutely jubilant because this will correct an event that they have felt guilty about now for hundreds of years, like 400 years in Doctor Who time. So Drama 2 says Capaldi got too woke too. Clara took over. I don't know. I didn't notice it so much with Capaldi. I just noticed that the tone was getting darker. They used to say that Doctor Who is kind of like a fairy tale. And I think Doctor Who works best as a fairy tale. When you start to get into real-world consequences and stuff, you start to move away from this fairy tale aspect of it, and it tends to get too dark. Other things in the Darkroom this week, we have the Superman episode 16, The Underground World, which has been upscaled to 1440p and 48 frames per second. I like that a lot. Again, it's all the Superman cartoons that I'm throwing out here, and I want to say this. Gosh, which one is this? Underground World. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, that one doesn't have any rather overt racism in it. A couple of them do. I'll try to warn you, but there's a couple of them do. It is just simply, you got to look at it historically, because this was the way people of those races or whatever were treated at the time. I don't want to whitewash that history at all. It's a good piece of history. But there is occasionally some overt racism in those cartoons. So, I also have 3 clips from the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was not a good adaptation from my perspective. They did it for the same reason they did it in comics. But I don't think it was a very good adaptation because in comics it involved every superhero from throughout time and space. And you can't do that with only a handful of superheroes. So I didn't think they did it very well, but I did take 3 clips from that and upscaled them and got copyright claims. The first one is the introduction cameos that were on that. It was almost a mini-series. What they did was they took one episode from each of the CW shows that they're running, and there's 5, and they made one part on each one of those. But again, didn't work very well from my perspective because you didn't have enough superheroes involved, frankly. But I did upscale also. I did upscale the intro cameos, and that's kind of fun because what they did was they were saying every single universe that involves DC in almost any way is impacted by this giant wave of antimatter that's destroying everything in sight. So you get things like towards the beginning of the thing, you get Alexander Knox, who played I've forgotten. There was a character called Alexander Knox who was in the first 1990s Batman movie, right? And you see him on a park bench, and he's reacting to what's happening, and saying, "I hope you're watching, big guy," and there's a bat signal. They do that with and they do that with several other of the TV shows and stuff. And the most fun one is at the very end. And if you haven't seen it, sorry, going to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, at the very end, they do Burt Ward as Dick Grayson, and saying, okay, we're even taking into account that universe from way back then. It was Earth 66, because that's when the show came out. But he has a great line at the end. I won't spoil that for you if you haven't seen it. It's a great line. Watch it. It's fun to watch because of that stuff. Drop 2 says, Doctor Who was a space wizard before Star Wars. Very tongue-in-cheek. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Drop 2 says, everything old is racist now, isn't it? Yes, the woke are trying to ban the Rolling Stones' Brown Sugar, but every black person you've known has actually liked it. Give me some sugar, baby. Yeah, exactly. The woke are not victims themselves and must take over as white knight for every supposedly victimized person out there. But you go back to these older movies, and you'll occasionally see some racism, stuff that we certainly wouldn't do or say today. But I look at it as like, okay, this is just historical. This was the way things were when these were made. You can learn something about the society by saying, okay, this was made, and we couldn't do that today. But yes, the woke want to ban everything in sight. So I did that opening cameo scene. And then I also did one, which is Superman versus Superman. Superman v. Superman is what I'm calling it. Also upscaled to 4K and 60 frames per second. Unfortunately, I think all of these from Crisis on Infinite Earths may have been artificially pushed from 24 to 30 frames per second. They don't look as good as some of them. They look good, don't get me wrong, but they don't. The frame rate is such that they don't have quite the same kind of movements that you'll see in some of my other ones. So I did this Superman v. Superman scene. There is a scene where the Superman that we are used to seeing in the CW gets into a fight with Superman, played by Brandon Routh. Now, Brandon Routh played Superman in the movie Superman Returns, which wasn't a very good movie, although I do have some stuff in the darkroom with it. So he played that Superman, and the way that Superman was written in Superman Returns is that was a direct sequel to Superman 1 and 2, probably not any of the rest. So that was a direct sequel to the Christopher Reeve films, which I adore. So Brandon Routh is an okay actor. You know, you can't help but look at him and compare him to Christopher Reeve, but he was good for the part. It's just that the movie sucked in several other ways and it never went anywhere. But this we got the one Superman that we're used to dealing with in the CW, and then they go over to another universe that is apparently the universe in which the Christopher Reeve stories take place, with Superman as played by Brandon Routh, and it's been a number of years. Things have happened. I won't necessarily spoil that, but Superman's gotten older. And so the two of them, through one thing or another, they end up fighting. So it's two Supermen fighting. And I think it's a really cool scene. That's why I put it in there. So. Also, from Crisis on Infinite Earths, I've put in the ending cameos, which are also very cool. Ends with the John Williams Superman theme and Brandon Routh as Superman doing exactly what Superman should, flying out of space, smile for the camera. And so the ending cameos are also very funny and good, so watch those. They're fun. Drop 2 says, you're glad you have a copy of Disney's Song of the South. I'm sure that's banned now. Well, it's actually still on the high seas, but I also have a copy myself. Yes, and I'm glad I have that too. Getting closer to the end of all the stuff that I put in the last 2 weeks, we finally got Superman episode 17, the last ones, called Secret Agent, again upscaled to 1440p and 48 frames per second. It's the last of these Superman cartoons that have been upscaled so far. Maybe someday I'll get a better original print to work from, and I'll do it again. But right now, this is what I've got, and I think it looks very cool. The cartoons under Famous Studios, because Fleischer had, the two Fleischer brothers had just a giant fight between each other, and both of them walked completely away from the studio that had their name on it. So Paramount just bought it right the hell away and then turned it into Famous Studios. And they started to hemorrhage people who had been with the company, had been with Fleischer, but they started to hemorrhage out, and they got some people in, and Paramount wasn't really willing to spend all the money they should on these, and so the quality of the cartoons kind of decreased. But these last couple are still kind of a return to former glory. You still see some of the very good animation in places. The faces and stuff of people aren't really as defined as they should be, as they would have been under Fleischer, but it's still a lot of fun. The last couple of cartoons are kind of a return to former glory before they went out. So. Drop 2 says Superman Returns was a Bryan Singer sci-fi film. Say no more. Well, for me, the whole thing falls apart when you have Super Stalker. That was just so weird. Superman would never do that. It was too weird, and from that point on, I was like, no. They also suffer from the problem of not balancing that action with character development and drama and stuff. There isn't enough fun action sequences going on. I mean, this is Superman, right? People watch to do that. There's really one major one, and I already have it in the Darkroom, where Superman saves the airplane in there. That's a very cool scene. Should have had more like that, but they didn't. They had Super Stalker instead. But that one is up there on my channel as well already. Yes, they're doing a live action Buzz Lightyear film. No, it's not live action. It is Pixar CGI. But I have also, just going to talk about that, I have that Lightyear teaser trailer, upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second in the Darkroom. It's CGI. It's near as I can tell, what's happening is they're saying, okay, what is the story behind? Okay, so we're selling toys of Buzz Lightyear. What is behind those toys, the TV show or the movie or whatever, that causes kids to want to buy these toys? And so they're doing that story, apparently. It looks really good on the upscaled version. I think I'm kind of excited to see it. So we'll see what happens with that. Have I any news on how bad the Eternals film is? No. I have no information on the Eternals. It's not yet shown up on the high seas that I've noticed. I've looked for it. Unless it's really good, I'm not going to be able to cost justify it. But I don't know if it's going to be good or bad or not. I just know, as I've said forever, they should have ended the MCU on the logical closure point at the end of Endgame. Fade out, the end, no more MCU stories. That's what I would have done. But they didn't. So now we got all these TV series that are starting to go woke. We got this one, which is based on a super team sort of that nobody ever really cared about very much. So it's kind of dumb. But we'll see. Maybe they'll be able to pull it out. I didn't have any expectations like walking into Thor either, and those movies are okay. You could get something like that here where it's okay. I don't know. I don't know these characters that well. I don't know the source material that well because I'm among the people who just didn't care very much. Drop 2 says, Scott Mendelson, Mr. Woke of Forbes, couldn't find anything good to say about it. Really? Well, if he's Mr. Woke, then maybe it's a good movie. Other things that I have in the Darkroom. The last big one here is Blaze Glory, which is upscaled to 1440p. And 60 frames per second. This technically is a really interesting one. The original I have, there is no better version, but the original I have is 640 by 480, which is tiny for upscaling. It's a bad copy to start with. You want to get at least to DVD. But I upscaled that and did the frame interpolation, and boy, oh boy, the upscale didn't help at all. Now you just have a very upscaled, rather blurry version because it was a bad print to begin with or something, but they put it probably on videotape, and it lived on videotape for a long time, for 20 or so years, before they finally took it out, and somebody said, oh, we can change this over to a digital format. But it probably had been transferred once to something like 16 millimeter film and then copied and shown in theaters or something, so you get, scratch marks and stuff that come with it. Just everything wrong with the source that could possibly be wrong with it. And it doesn't upscale very well. In fact, there's places where you go, oh, that looks really, really fake. The whole thing is a comedy, but when you look at some of the backgrounds and stuff, you go, oh man, that was terrible. It's up there basically because this is kind of an experimental channel. It's up there to say, okay, this is what happens when you start with a very less than optimal print. Interestingly enough, the reason that I put it up there is kind of, it's one of those deals where I don't want to lose time. Because, believe it or not, if you go watch this thing, it's a short, it's less than 10 minutes, I think. And it has some names in it. This is from 1969, and it has some names in it that you'd probably know if you'd watched almost any kind of cartoon from the 1970s all the way through the 1990s at least. So they're working on this film, and I thought that was kind of cool. But this film, Blaze Glory, for about a week, actually played before Star Wars in my market. Because at the time, the expectation throughout the industry was that Star Wars was, at best, going to break even. They didn't think it was going to be any kind of big deal. And when people, the suits who make these decisions for any given part of the country, they looked at the thing and they said, oh man, this Star Wars thing is so weird. Let's put something in front of it, because back then some theaters still had like cartoons or something, or a humor short or something for the main picture. So in my market, some suit somewhere said, let's put this Blaze Glory thing from 1969, 8 years ago. Let's take that and we'll put it right before Star Wars. We'll run it before Star Wars, because Blaze Glory is kind of weird to start with. It's funny as hell, I think. But it's kind of weird. And so they said, okay, well, we'll get the audience, the expectation by virtue of showing this stupid little short that they're about to watch something weird. Don't take it too seriously and buy the popcorn and stuff. So it was in my market. I saw it in multiple theaters for about a week. And then it was gone. They saw that it was a fantastically successful film, and they pulled it out of the theaters in my market just instantly. So that's why I have that one in there, and it's kind of interesting to watch because there are some gags in there that are highly reminiscent of Blazing Saddles, and you have to wonder, did somebody doing Blazing Saddles get ideas out of this short? I don't know, but you can watch it and probably see them. If somebody wants to ask Mel Brooks if he was ever influenced by this, please do. I don't know how much time we have to do that left. So, Drop 2 says, have you had any food shortages or fuel price hikes where we are in Nebraska? The gas has gone up considerably in the last few months, and not unexpectedly, because Biden reversed everything that Trump did to get us energy independent, and so that was going to mean we were going to be buying more gas and oil from people who want to hike the prices on us. So we've had some, yes. He artificially reduced the supply, so the price went up on the demand. Guy's a moron. What we have had shortages of, weirdly enough, I probably have said that this weird skunk beard doesn't do itself. My beard, if I grow it naturally, is very patchy and weird looking. It's white and brown in places. So I color it this way to make it kind of look better. Also reminiscent of Jimmy Doohan in the 1970s rather. And also Orson Welles. I don't think I look like him, but hey. Also don't have his voice. But what I noticed immediately shortage of was dyes for this thing. I use light brown because there are lots of different colors. I use light brown, and I go to get it, and it's gone. There's 2 or 3 of them in the lower brown colors that they just completely ran out of. And I go to different drugstores, they don't have them. I go to grocery stores, they don't have them in my color. So I actually found a place that had it and then stockpiled about 4 of them. I need one every week and a half or so, or it starts to look bad. But that's stuff that we've seen shortages of. I can't really talk about the groceries very much because my diet is so restrictive that for me to notice any problem means we had a serious problem. Drop 2 says, is U.S. $5 a gallon still cheaper than here in Australia? You pay $1.50 a liter. There are no doubt markets where that's the case. In my market, it's just over, I think the last time I went to do anything with it, it was $3.09, but that's for the gas that has no alcohol in it because my Jeep Wrangler doesn't hold her liquor very well. I get much worse gas mileage if she gets any kind of alcohol in her system. So I'm buying the expensive gas. It's under a little bit under $3 for the regular stuff with alcohol in it. But the stuff I buy is $3.09, I think the last time. I don't know what what it looks like for I'm blanking. The other kind of fuel that trucks and stuff use, diesel. I don't know what the diesel fuel looks like because it hasn't impacted me, but I'm sure it's up. It has to be. It's just supply and demand. Reduce the supply or demand remains constant, you're going to see price increases. But I'm sure in states like California, where they tax gas so badly. I mean, when I used to drive from Des Moines to Chicago, where my kids were growing up, I always got gas on the Iowa side because the moment that you went over, you would feel a 25-cent per gallon tax that the state of Illinois was putting on gasoline. 25 cents per gallon. They're overpricing the gas by putting too much tax in it. California is overpricing it by putting too much tax on it. Usually when you see those giant increases, it's because the state itself is taxing the frack out of it. Drop a Tooth says E10 with ethanol burns much quicker. Yeah, I just noticed it because I was like, wait a minute, hold on. When I put the stuff without alcohol in it, this car gets way better gas mileage by 5 to 7 gallons, miles per gallon. So. Anyway, Blaze Glory is the most recent one that I have up in the dark room. However, I will be dropping one immediately after this stream is over. I was, doing all of the Superman cartoons, right? And take away from it what you will. But the original Forbidden Planet trailer, which has been upscaled to 4K and 48 frames per second, is also now in the darkroom. I have a number of clips from Forbidden Planet that are very cool. That are probably going to go up maybe on a weekly basis, maybe a little more. So where I was doing all the Superman stuff, I'm going to do a bunch of Forbidden Planet stuff. Not that there won't be other things in between, but you're going to see probably weekly some Forbidden Planet clip. That and 2001: A Space Odyssey. I have to be very careful about what goes up because they will block that worldwide. And when they do that, I get nervous that they might do a copyright strike against me rather than just a copyright claim. Have a second. I just realized my fan, which keeps me from overheating like I'm starting to do now, was sitting in the place in front of me is my laptop. And it's got a really good graphics processor, so that means that I can take advantage of certain stuff in the software to make what I do with these videos go faster. But it really heats up the graphics processor. So I take my little desk fan and I put my laptop up on, I think it's a book, and then I take that fan and I aim it where the GPU is, and that sucker is getting so warm that the air blowing out of it is just underneath it, that it comes across to me as very warm. So I just keep the fan cooling my GPU. If anybody wants to send me a computer with about 5 GPUs in it, I think this stuff would go down practically instantly. Drop 2 says, Forbidden Planet is my number one favorite sci-fi film. Never surpassed. Yes, brilliantly intelligent. It was based loosely on Shakespeare's The Tempest. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I think you're going to enjoy, if you like Forbidden Planet, you're going to enjoy the clips I'm putting up. As again, I have to be a little bit careful about it. Like I have already done the entire sequence that starts in Morbius's office, goes through all of the wonders of the Krell, and then ends just when they're about to have a scene on the ship. I did that whole thing. Too long. MGM is not going to let me do that, so I have to cut them down to much shorter clips. The other one I have trouble with too is 2001: A Space Odyssey, because that looks really pretty as well. But I took the entire Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite section and upscaled that, and there's no way that they're going to let me put that out there in big clips like that. But I am going to do some. Interesting thing about that is, you're dealing back then with models and stuff like that. And when you upscale the spaceships and stuff, they actually, not surprisingly with the extra detail, they start to look a little bit more like models. It doesn't matter. It's still very cool. And even better when you've got it upscaled. Everything looks really nice. But it's, it was, Anyway, it's a great film. I'm going to be doing some stuff there. Do it on BitChute. The problem with BitChute is it doesn't do high resolutions. They're making it bigger all the time, but the last I knew, the highest resolution they had was 720p. It may be up to 1080p now, but they don't have the capability of taking my video and just putting it out there the way it is. YouTube does this as well. They get the video and they process it. Basically, I think what they're doing is adding a bunch of compression to it so that they don't have, I don't know how many thousands of terabytes worth of this video files, so they crunch them down. But YouTube will allow you to do 4K and high frame rates. They don't allow that over on BitChute. I wish they did. I don't know for sure who can do. You're saying Gab TV. I can certainly try those. I just don't know which of them has the capability to do what I'm doing here. You have to have very high resolutions, typically 4K, and the ability to do high frame rates. So last I checked, that wasn't really possible any place but YouTube. I don't like it, but that's the case. Anyway, that Forbidden Planet trailer is going to drop right after the show is done, so go over and have a look at that. The source video on that was less than optimal. It's not as bad as some of the others, but it was less than optimal. It's not bad, but it's less than optimal. When you look at the the upscaled ones that I've got from Forbidden Planet, I started out with a 1080p copy to begin with. It was really pristine and nice. So when you upscale that, it looks great. But anyhow, that's they don't have the ability on BitChute to do it because it involves a lot of back-end processing that I don't really think they're geared up for. Let's see, it's 10:30. It's been an hour and a half. Cool. So yeah, that's what I've got in the darkroom, and probably forthcoming is going to be a lot of stuff from Forbidden Planet. As more trailers drop, I'll grab those, even though it doesn't seem to be doing anything right now. Leave them out there and see what happens. And there'll be other stuff as it goes along. You want the real fun one? I have the entirety of the Superman and Superman Returns opening titles, and those look really nice. Those look really nice. The problem is they're so long that I'm not sure I can upload them. I'm going to try. I also have one that I'm going to call 30 goddamn seconds of logos. Because the logos, by the time you get to Superman Returns, the logos were getting way long because every production company who had everything to do with it was shown at the beginning. That was happening with Superman Returns, so I've got that taken out as a special video. I also have the Superman, I think I already have it up, the Superman Returns plane rescue. And I'm also going to get up there the helicopter rescue from Superman 1978. So. Do I really think a cyber polygon event will happen? I'm not even sure what that refers to necessarily. Usually when anybody says cyber anything, I just go, well, you probably don't know what you're talking about. We have terms in IT. IT-sec for IT security. We talk about things in terms of Are the packets moving? Things like that. We don't really generally talk about in terms of cyber stuff. Cyber's not a word that professionals actually use. We use other things because cyber was real big in the 1990s, and then it wasn't. So, got a couple of reviews very briefly to do today. Just a quick note about Stargirl. I've said this with Superman and Lois, that when you get into superheroes, there is a very fine line between when you have character development versus action. You come to Superman, what you're expecting is to see some cool super action. And so they've done it very, very well there. The character development, unlike all the other CW shows, doesn't seem forced. It doesn't feel like it's being a soap opera. It's good. And let's see. Drop 2 says Cyber Polygon was a UN exercise on August 15th this year about the internet going down globally. They can do it if they want. If the internet goes down globally, we're all dead. Internet underpins all commerce. Period. Totally underpins it. Without the internet, everything falls apart. Anyway, Stargirl, as I say, in Superman and Lois, they have this very good, balance. I think it works very well most of the time. Stargirl in the first season and the first half or so of this season was good about that. They weren't turning into some kind of, I always say it's the Charmed effect, because I first noticed it in the TV series Charmed at the turn of the century. They would be doing some real cool action and then grab and pull on the brakes and stop to have some meaningless character development. So that's what's starting to happen in Stargirl. The last few episodes have been more soap opera than action, and they need some action in there and a lot less soap opera. The soap opera comes up in places that you don't really think it should. It doesn't seem organic and natural. It's like the other CW shows now. It's getting to be like the CW shows. Guys, stop. You don't want to be like the other CW shows. Pull it back on the soap opera. This has been a good show the first season and part of the second. But the last several episodes have just been lots of talking. We don't see these characters to see a lot of talking. We want to see some super feats as well. So, guys, come on, stop. Don't be a CW show, for God's sake. Drop of Truth says, remember, every superhero comic had at least one fight or big action event. Can you do the same on TV or film? Probably not. It's easier to do now than it would have been, 30 years ago. What was CGI and all that? But as I said for Superman, if you don't have the money to do something, then don't do it at all. Save your money for something big that you want to have around. Cool stuff like that. Here they've got superheroes who, the source material, are pretty powerful, some of which are really powerful. And if you don't have the money to do that stuff, don't do it. Don't act like you're building up to it. Just don't do it. Do something that you can do. I hope that they're building up to something that's going to be really big at the end of the season. But like I say, the last few episodes, okay, guys, we need to quit talking. We need to have something interesting, fun. Yeah, the Drop of Two says soap opera is cheap to do. Yeah, it certainly is. And the CW shows, like I say, they just pull on the brakes, start pointing the camera, reverse shot with two people talking, and it's just like, God, must we? Can't we do something fun? The other thing I have to say about Stargirl, because I'm not going to talk about these two shows much. The other thing I have to say about Stargirl is, guys, this is supposed to be happening in the summer in Nebraska. It looks like it's autumn. The characters are all dressed like it's autumn. Guys, what the hell are you doing? Come with me. Come here to Nebraska. I will show you the approximate place where Blue Valley would be, and you can see what the temperature's like in June through August. It's horrifying. It really is. Guys, I don't know where you shot this, but it wasn't someplace that looks like Nebraska in the summertime at all. It strikes me every time I watch it because this is something that's close to home for me. I go, oh, look, not anything like Nebraska. It's hotter than hell in here in the summer. Why are these characters wearing everything that they are and so forth? That is my biggest, not my biggest, the biggest gripe is all of the soap opera. But again, as somebody who lives in the area, I just go, no, this has nothing to do with reality, you know. Drop 2 says, if I see Netflix's Inside Job cartoon, it's great, very funny indeed, very cleverly written. It parodies every conspiracy theory. Inside the Job, I'll have to take a look at that over on the high seas because I don't have a Netflix subscription. My only subscription, as always, is to Hulu, and that is solely to support the Orville. I want them to be more Orville. And you hear different kinds of things coming out, rumors from time to time, that there might not be a 4th season. And I just look at it and go, Jesus, a piece of crap like Star Trek Discovery can get 4 seasons, but maybe something good like the Orville can't? God. Anyway, I only have that one. The rest of what I watch tends to come off the high seas. So that's pretty much what I have to say about Stargirl. Just, you know, guys, it's turning into soap opera. It doesn't feel organic, and you aren't doing any action, and it's a superhero show. We come to see the action. So, other thing I'll talk about is Foundation, and only briefly because this is Foundation in name only. The entire series from the beginning has not followed the books at all. In fact, were it not for terms like psychohistory, the names of certain characters, it bears no relationship to Foundation whatsoever. Zero relationship to it. Nothing that we've seen so far, aside from buzzwords and character names, has anything to do with the books. It's not bad science fiction, don't get me wrong, but it has Foundation mistakenly duct taped to the side of the film cans. This is not Foundation. It's just not. It's some character names, and that's it. So when I watch it, yes, it's decent enough science fiction so far, but is it Foundation? Sure as hell ain't anything like Foundation. So that's really what I have to say about that, because the Foundation TV series just isn't like anything like it. It's a good enough show. I don't dislike it. It's just I look at it and go, you guys, I get where, you know, trying to do a novella, a series of novellas like Foundation originally was, is hard. That's tough. I get it. But you don't have to go completely off the deep end and do stuff that has no relationship to the books whatsoever. I mean, this is so far away from the books. You know, at least you could say with a movie like Starship Troopers, okay, they didn't get the book, but at least some of the events are the same. Here, the events aren't even the same. Nothing whatsoever to do with Foundation. Watch it if you want to see some decent enough science fiction, but it's not Foundation at all. Go read the books if you want to get that. Well, pretty much that's all I have to say about that. As I say, this is going to be the last stream I do for a while. Don't know how long that while will be. Maybe that I just have to open my mouth and bitch about something. But for the sake of my health and how my weird mental health and stuff with my diabetes works, I'm going to have to just kind of drop off for a bit and see what happens. Better that than accidentally letting my medications not cover my condition at all. That would be very bad. So that, I think, it being about a little over an hour and a half, that is really all I've got to say about that. I would certainly love to keep the conversation going. Please do feel free to leave comments and questions and nasty remarks in my comments section. And do definitely go over, while I'm not doing streams, the Tale from SYL Ranch Darkroom. Link to that channel below. Go and take a look at all the cool stuff that's in there. That doesn't take me any time to do. Well, it doesn't take me any personal time to do. So it's all very automated, so I can do that. But some of it's very, very cool. And some of it, there's a couple that I just put up there because I say, this is what happens when you don't have a good print to start with. But most of the stuff looks very cool. Take a look, like, share, hit the notification bell on that channel so you can be notified when things happen, because there's going to be a bunch. Dalton says, I want to say that I appreciate my content. Thank you very much. Watched me consistently for 2 years, and my nap videos literally changed your life. Well, I'm very humbled by that. Thank you very much. I wish I could keep on doing this for the moment. It's a farewell tour, so that doesn't mean I won't come back, just like any farewell tour. And in fact, I probably will at some point. The issue is I have a number of stressors in life that are not going to change for a long time, and I have some others that might change, and it's screwing up my medications, and so I have to start dropping off stressors, and this was one of them, because it's not absolutely required for me or someone else to live. So. Drop2 says, cheers, Bill. Catch me on Twitter. Not very much. Not very much. Mostly my advertising is on Twitter now. I'm very much out of it if I possibly can. But anyway, I appreciate it very much, Dalton. I appreciate it very much. And with any luck, things will kind of straighten out, and I'll be back before I would have expected. But I will definitely be back at some point. You're not going to be through with me entirely. So, thank you for watching this episode of Tales from SYL Ranch Live. And I'm Bill Stone.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.